In the quiet town of Shady Pines, an elderly woman, living alone with only the whispers of the wind for company, would never have imagined that one spring morning would change her life forever. As the first rays of light filtered through the trees, Ethel stepped onto her porch, expecting nothing more than a few peaceful moments with her morning paper. But what she found instead left her heart heavy with sorrow and hope. There, trembling in the cold, was a K9 German Shepherd. His fur, matted and worn, clung to his frail body, his ribs visible beneath the coat that had once been proud and strong. He was exhausted, starving, and there, tucked beneath him, were two tiny puppies, barely hanging on to life. Ethel's eyes met the shepherd's, and in that moment, everything changed. The dog, looking defeated yet protective, didn't bark or growl. He simply gazed at her, as if pleading for help. Without hesitation, Ethel's motherly instinct took over. She had never owned a dog before. Her late husband had been allergic, but this was different. This was a creature in need, and she would do whatever it took to save them. What happened next would not only change the lives of this courageous dog and his pups, but also touch the hearts of an entire town. What Ethel did that day was a true act of kindness, and as her story unfolds, it will remind us all that even in the darkest moments, compassion can light the way. Stay with us and hear how one woman's love and determination saved not just a dog, but an entire family. This is the story you'll remember. You're watching Acts of Kindness Stories. Ethel Morgan wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary that morning. The cool spring air, a light drizzle making the porch steps shimmer, was a perfect backdrop for her quiet ritual. At 74 years old, Ethel had come to appreciate the calmness of her life in Shady Pines, a small, tucked-away town where time seemed to slow down. Each morning she'd grab her paper, settle in with a cup of coffee, and enjoy a moment of peace. But this morning, peace would be a distant memory. As she stepped outside, expecting the familiar stillness, her eyes were drawn to a sight that stopped her in her tracks. There on the edge of her porch was a dog, a German Shepherd, his body trembling uncontrollably in the cold. His fur, once thick and full, was now matted and patchy, clinging to his emaciated frame. His ribs were visible beneath the coat, a stark reminder of how much he had suffered. But what struck Ethel most was the way he was curled around two tiny puppies, barely larger than her hands. They huddled together, seeking warmth in their weakened state. One of them whimpered softly, while the other lay still, barely moving. Ethel's heart sank. The dog wasn't just a stray. She could feel it in her bones. This dog, despite his frailty, had been through something far worse than just hunger and cold. The bond between him and the pups was undeniable, a protective love that shone through in his weakened state. Slowly she crouched down, her voice soft as she spoke to the dog. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered. "You're safe now." The dog's eyes met hers, eyes that were clouded with exhaustion, but still full of something else, something more. There was fear in them, yes, but there was also a quiet trust. No growl, no bark, just a silent plea for help. She reached her hand out, and to her amazement, the dog didn't flinch. Instead, he lowered his head into her palm, letting out a soft whine that seemed to crack something deep inside her. Ethel's heart ached. She had never owned a dog in her life. Her late husband had been allergic. But in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was this dog, these pups, and the choice she would make. She couldn't leave them out there. No matter the cost, they needed help. She quickly gathered what she could. A quilt, a few towels, and leftover roast chicken from the fridge, and made her way back to the porch. The dog didn't resist. He simply watched her, alert but calm, as if he knew that help had arrived. Gently, she laid the quilt down and helped the dog settle onto it. With tender hands, she dried the puppies with the towels, their tiny bodies shivering from the cold. She placed the chicken in a pie tin and filled a shallow bowl with water. As she watched them eat, her mind raced. She didn't know where they had come from, why they were there, or who had abandoned them. But what she did know was that they were hers now, and she would protect them with everything she had. The night was long. After calling the only vet in town, Ethel was told that someone would come by first thing in the morning. But for now, all she could do was sit beside the sleeping trio, watching them breathe. The dog, who she had decided to name Ranger, though she wasn't sure why, was finally resting, his body exhausted from whatever he had endured. The puppies were nestled against him, their fragile little bodies rising and falling with each breath. As the rain gently tapped against the windows, Ethel whispered into the quiet room, "You're safe now. Whatever happened before, it's over." But deep inside, a nagging feeling lingered. There was something about this dog, something more than just a stray, that troubled her. She could see it in his eyes, in the way he reacted to sudden sounds. His body language was too controlled, too disciplined, like he was used to danger. It was almost as if he had been trained for something. The next morning, Ethel couldn't shake the feeling that Ranger wasn't just any stray. She did a quick search online using her old tablet and found something that chilled her to the bone. The signs were undeniable. Scarred ears, worn pads, the obedient silence. This wasn't just any dog. This was a retired K9. Ranger wasn't just a stray. He had been trained for something much bigger. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. He was a soldier, a protector, a hero in his own right. And somehow he had ended up on her doorstep. But who had left him there? And why? The more she thought about it, the more she realized that Ranger wasn't just a victim of neglect. He was part of a larger story. His past wasn't over. And somehow she was tied to it now. That morning, as the sun filtered through the curtains, there was a knock on her door. Ethel's heart skipped a beat. When she opened it, a man in uniform stood there. His expression one of polite concern. Deputy Ross had come to check on the dog after several reports had come in about a large, agitated German Shepherd seen wandering the area. Ranger stood behind Ethel, watching the deputy with a low growl. He wasn't aggressive, but the protective instinct was clear. Ethel hesitated, her heart racing. "I found him yesterday," she said softly, her voice betraying a hint of fear. "With 2 pups." Deputy Ross raised an eyebrow. "Mind if I take a look?" Reluctantly, Ethel stepped aside. As the deputy entered, he knelt down to examine Ranger, his expression shifting when he saw the dog up close. "I think I might know him," he muttered under his breath. Ethel was confused. "You know him?" "I think so," the deputy replied, his voice low. "This looks a lot like Kane. Kane was a K9 on my unit. He went missing 6 months ago during a sting operation. His handler didn't make it." His voice trailed off as Ranger lifted his head, ears twitching at the mention of the name. "Kane," Ethel whispered, her mind spinning. "But why is he here? What happened to him?" The deputy stood up slowly, his face darkening. "If this is Kane, there are people who are going to want to know." Ethel's heart clenched at the thought of losing Ranger, of losing the little family she had just begun to love. "Will they take him?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Deputy Ross said quietly. "Technically, Kane belongs to the state, but he's not just any dog. He's a hero." Ethel made up her mind then. "I won't let them take him," she said firmly, her voice full of resolve. "Not after everything he's been through." The deputy nodded, understanding. "Let me make some calls. If it really is Kane, he deserves more than paperwork. He deserves peace." Later that afternoon, Ethel's house would become a battleground, not just for Ranger's past, but for his future. As the evening sky darkened, Ethel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. There was a knock on her door late that night. 3 slow, deliberate raps. Her blood ran cold. No one came to her door at this hour. Not in this part of town. Not during a storm. Outside, a black SUV idled on the street, headlights off, watching. The knock came again, louder this time. "You have something that belongs to us," a voice called from behind the door, low and threatening. Ethel froze. Ranger's body tensed beside her. This wasn't just a stray dog anymore. This was a soldier, a protector, and his past was catching up to him. But no matter who was out there, Ethel knew one thing for sure. She would fight for him. She would protect him, just as fiercely as he had protected his pups. And so began the real battle, one of survival, loyalty, and the bond that had been formed between a woman and a dog, a bond that no one could break. The night had felt like an eternity. Ethel sat in the small cabin, the fire flickering softly, casting shadows on the walls as she clutched the puppies close to her chest. Cain stood at the door, his body tense, eyes fixed on the dark beyond. Every inch of him screamed of the danger still lurking outside, of the past he couldn't escape. But now Ethel understood something deeper. This wasn't just a fight for a dog. It was a fight for family, for loyalty, and for a second chance at peace. Then, just as the tension seemed unbearable, the SUV lights flashed. The attackers had arrived. A battle unfolded in the darkened cabin, but Cain, despite the pain and exhaustion, fought fiercely to protect what he had found. His new family. When the dust settled, with the help of the police, the attackers were taken away. But Cain, despite the battle he had just fought, wasn't moving. His body trembled from the tranquilizer dart, his strength fading. Ethel didn't leave his side. As the police took him to the vet, Ethel held her breath, praying for his recovery. And when the call came, when she saw him again, standing weakly but alive, wagging his tail, it was nothing short of a miracle. Months passed, and Cain became part of the family in every sense. The puppies grew stronger, learning from their father's strength and wisdom. Ethel, once a quiet widow, found a new purpose in caring for them, surrounded by the love and loyalty that had once seemed so far from her life. This story is a reminder of how acts of kindness can change lives, not just for those who receive but for those who give. Cain had been a soldier, a protector, and now he was simply a loved dog in a home where he belonged. In a world where kindness can sometimes seem in short supply, remember that love has the power to heal, to transform, and to give hope. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and leave a comment. Join us on our journey to inspire more people through the power of compassion. Help us reach 10,000 subscribers on Acts of Kindness Stories. Together, we can continue sharing stories that remind us all of the beauty of second chances.